Welcome to Soft Echoes. Today, we're bringing you Starlit Whispers, a heartfelt journey of two souls reuniting under a magical, starlit sky, rediscovering old feelings and uncovering new depths in their connection. If you enjoy stories that capture romance and connection, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales that will keep you coming back for more. Starlit Whispers. The cool evening breeze swept through the small coastal town of Willow Bay, carrying with it the sweet scent of salt and wildflowers. The sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden hue across the horizon, and the sky was painted with vibrant shades of orange, pink, and deep purple. It was the kind of evening that beckoned for adventure, a perfect backdrop for new beginnings. Sophia Hastings stood on the balcony of her quaint, seaside cottage, sipping a glass of chilled rose. She had returned to Willow Bay after years in the bustling city, seeking solace and clarity after a tumultuous chapter in her life. The soft sound of waves crashing against the shore created a rhythm that soothed her restless heart. This place had always felt like home, a refuge where she could find herself again. As she leaned against the railing, gazing out at the sea, her thoughts drifted back to her childhood. Memories of laughter and carefree days spent building sandcastles with her best friend, Alex, flooded her mind. They had grown up together, inseparable until life had pulled them in different directions. Sophia had lost touch with him, just as she had lost touch with the carefree spirit of her youth. Maybe it's time to reconnect, she whispered to herself, the idea igniting a spark of excitement in her chest. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts, hesitating as she came across his name. It had been years since they last spoke, and the thought of reaching out sent butterflies fluttering in her stomach. But deep down, she felt a pull, a yearning to see him again, to feel the warmth of his presence. After a moment's hesitation, she pressed call, her heart racing as the phone rang. Each chime echoed like a countdown, building anticipation. Just as she was about to hang up, he answered. "Hello?" His voice was rich and familiar, sending a jolt of nostalgia through her. "Alex?" "It's Sophia," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "Sophia. Wow, it's been ages. How are you?" His excitement was palpable, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. "I'm good. Just moved back to Willow Bay," she replied, her heart swelling at the thought of him. "No way. I'm actually in town for the weekend. We should meet up," he suggested, enthusiasm bubbling in his tone. "Really? That sounds great," she exclaimed, surprised by how quickly her nerves melted away. They arranged to meet at their old favorite spot, a little cafe by the beach where they used to share ice cream and secrets under the stars. The memories flooded back, and Sophia felt a rush of warmth at the thought of rekindling their friendship. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the velvety sky, Sophia made her way to the cafe. The soft glow of fairy lights wrapped around the entrance, casting a magical ambience. She stepped inside, the familiar sound of laughter and clinking glasses creating a welcoming atmosphere. She spotted Alex sitting at a cozy corner table, his back to her. He looked older, more mature, yet the same playful spirit she remembered was evident in the way he leaned back in his chair, laughing at something the waiter said. Her heart raced as she approached him, a mix of nerves and excitement swirling within her. "Hey, stranger," she said softly, and he turned around, his eyes widening in recognition. "Sophia," he exclaimed, rising to wrap her in a warm hug that felt both comforting and electric. She inhaled his familiar scent, something fresh, like the ocean mixed with a hint of cologne. They settled into easy conversation, reminiscing about their childhood adventures and sharing stories of their lives since they last met. The laughter flowed freely, as if no time had passed at all. They talked about their dreams, their struggles, and the paths they had taken. "I miss this," Sophia admitted, looking into his deep blue eyes that sparkled with warmth. "I missed you." "Same here." I always wondered what happened to you. Life got in the way, I guess, he replied, a hint of regret in his voice. But I'm glad you're back. As they spoke, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a blanket of stars across the sky. The cafe's outdoor seating area was now illuminated by soft fairy lights, creating a romantic atmosphere. Sophia could feel the chemistry between them growing stronger with each passing moment. The way he looked at her made her heart race, and she could sense an unspoken tension lingering in the air. After finishing their meal, Alex suggested they take a walk along the beach. The sound of waves crashing against the shore accompanied them as they strolled side by side, their shoes in hand, the cool sand beneath their feet. The night was alive with the sound of the ocean and the distant laughter of other beachgoers, but in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. Remember when we used to build those giant sandcastles? Alex asked, a nostalgic smile on his face. Of course. And we'd decorate them with seashells and seaweed, Sophia laughed, the memory flooding her with joy. I still think we had the best sandcastles in Willow Bay, he teased, nudging her playfully. Definitely. We were unstoppable, she replied, her heart warming at the playful banter. As they walked, the conversation shifted to more personal topics. They spoke about their dreams, fears, and the things that had shaped them into who they were now. Sophia found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't done with anyone in a long time. It felt freeing, as if the walls she had built around her heart were slowly crumbling. Do you ever think about what could have been? Alex asked, his tone turning serious as he glanced at her, his expression contemplative. Sometimes, Sophia admitted, her heart fluttering. I always wondered how our lives would have turned out if we had stayed close. Me too. But I think everything happens for a reason, right? He replied, a hint of hope in his voice.
Yeah.
I believe that, she said softly. The silence that followed felt charged, as if they were both considering the weight of their words. They stopped by the water's edge, the waves lapping at their feet. Sophia gazed out at the moonlight shimmering on the surface of the ocean, lost in thought. She could feel Alex's presence beside her, his warmth radiating as he stood close, watching her. Hey, he said gently, turning her to face him. Can I tell you something? Of course, she replied, her heart racing. I've thought about you a lot over the years. Even when we weren't in touch, you were always in my mind, he confessed, his voice low and sincere. I never stopped caring about you. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as his words washed over her. The truth in his eyes made her heart race, and she felt a mix of fear and excitement at the vulnerability of the moment. I feel the same way, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I never forgot you, Alex. In that instant, the world around them faded away, leaving just the two of them beneath the starlit sky. Alex stepped closer, his gaze locked onto hers, and the air between them crackled with unspoken desire. She could see the longing in his eyes, a reflection of her own. As if drawn together by an invisible force, Alex leaned in, brushing his lips softly against hers. It was a tentative kiss, filled with a mixture of sweetness and hesitance, as if both were afraid to break the fragile spell that had enveloped them. The kiss deepened, and Sophia felt herself melting into him, her heart soaring as the warmth of his lips ignited a fire within her. They pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, the weight of what had just happened hanging in the air. A smile broke across Alex's face, a mixture of surprise and joy reflecting in his eyes. Wow, he breathed, his forehead resting against hers. That was incredible.
Yeah.
It was, Sophia replied, her cheeks flushed. The warmth radiating from their connection felt electric, a beautiful beginning she had longed for. As they stood together, the stars twinkling above, Sophia knew this was just the beginning of something profound. The echoes of the past had brought them back together, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this weekend getaway would change everything. As dawn broke over Willow Bay, the sound of gentle waves coaxed Sophia awake. She felt the warmth of sunlight streaming through her window, and for a moment, she stayed still, replaying the events of the previous night, the conversation, the laughter, the kiss. It felt like a dream, one she was afraid might dissipate with the morning light. Determined not to let go of the magic that had rekindled between them, she decided to seize the day. She got dressed and made her way to the small cafe where they'd planned to meet for breakfast, her heart fluttering with anticipation. As she approached, she spotted Alex sitting outside, casually leaning back in his chair with a cup of coffee, looking completely at ease. "Morning," she greeted him with a smile as she took a seat across from him. "Hey, you," he replied, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "Did you sleep well?" "I did. I think this town has some kind of magic," she joked, though part of her meant it. Everything felt surreal and yet entirely perfect, as though the universe had conspired to bring them back together. As they enjoyed breakfast, Alex suggested they spend the day exploring the spots they used to love as kids. They wandered through the town, visiting old landmarks and recalling memories that brought laughter to their lips. They even stopped by the beach where they had spent countless summers, running across the warm sand and daring each other to jump into the chilly water. The sense of familiarity wrapped around them like a warm embrace, but it was tinged with something new, something more profound. They could feel it in the way their hands brushed as they walked, the lingering looks that grew longer and more meaningful, and the warmth that spread through Sophia's heart each time Alex laughed. At one point, they came across a little bookshop tucked away at the edge of town. The shop was filled with old books, the scent of aged paper and leather filling the air. They wandered through the narrow aisles, browsing titles and sharing quiet moments. Alex picked up a worn poetry book and handed it to her, his fingers grazing hers. "Remember this?" he asked, his eyes glimmering with nostalgia. It was a book they had shared when they were younger, one that they would read aloud to each other on lazy summer afternoons. She opened it to a familiar page, the words instantly transporting her back to those carefree days. She read aloud a line that had always stuck with her, and as she spoke, she felt Alex's gaze on her, warm and intense. The atmosphere shifted, a comfortable silence falling between them as they stood surrounded by the stories they once shared. It was as though time had folded, bringing them back to a moment of innocence yet interwoven with the depth of their new reality. Later that evening, Alex surprised Sophia with a picnic by the cliffside, overlooking the ocean. They sat on a blanket, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant shades of orange and pink. The air was filled with the scent of wildflowers, mingling with the faint saltiness of the sea breeze. They shared stories, laughter, and comfortable silences, the quiet moments speaking louder than words. As the sun disappeared, leaving a canopy of stars above, Alex reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers in a way that felt both familiar and exhilaratingly new. "Do you ever wonder what might have happened if we hadn't lost touch?" Alex asked, his voice soft and thoughtful. "Sometimes," she replied, her gaze fixed on the stars. "But maybe we were meant to find each other now, as we are." He looked at her, his expression unreadable but warm, and she felt her pulse quicken under his gaze. In that quiet moment, they both knew that this was more than a reunion, it was a rediscovery, a rekindling of something they hadn't even realized they'd lost. The night unfolded in soft whispers and gentle laughter, the world around them fading away as they remained lost in each other's presence. The morning sun crept gently into Sophia's room, casting golden light across the bedspread and warming her face until she stirred awake. For a moment, she lay there, blinking sleepily, a serene smile spreading as the memories of yesterday resurfaced. She stretched, feeling the gentle ache of a day well spent in the company of someone she hadn't realized she'd missed so much. The feeling was almost intoxicating, a sweet warmth that lingered even as she rose to start the day. After getting dressed, Sophia stepped out of her room, the crisp morning air greeting her like an old friend. She decided to take a walk by the shore before meeting Alex for breakfast. The ocean was calm, waves curling gently over the sand, and the world around her was quiet, save for the occasional call of a seabird. Then, as she rounded a curve in the shoreline, she spotted him. Alex was sitting on a rock by the water's edge, his face turned toward the horizon. He held a small stone in his hand, turning it over thoughtfully before flicking it across the water. The stone skipped once, twice, then sank beneath the surface, leaving only ripples behind. She watched him for a moment, her heart swelling with a quiet happiness, and then walked over. "Skipping rocks without me," she teased as she approached, her voice light and warm. He turned, smiling when he saw her, his eyes lighting up in that way that made her feel as though she were the only person in the world. "Couldn't resist," he replied, holding up a smooth stone. "But I think I've lost my touch." She laughed, taking the stone from his hand. "I'll show you how it's done," she said, taking a few steps back and letting the stone fly with a practiced flick. It bounced 3 times before sinking. He raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Looks like I have some catching up to do." They spent the next few minutes finding stones, tossing them, and competing to see who could get the most skips. It felt wonderfully carefree, like they had stepped back in time to those summer days when everything seemed simpler. When they grew tired, they sat side by side on the sand, their shoulders almost touching. The conversation turned quieter, and Sophia found herself talking about things she rarely shared with anyone else. The things that kept her up at night, the dreams she tucked away, the places she longed to see. And as she spoke, Alex listened, really listened, his gaze steady and attentive, never interrupting, just soaking in her words as though each one was important. "I guess I've always been a little afraid of change," she admitted softly, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand. "It's why I stayed close to home, why I never took risks. Sometimes, I feel like I've missed out." Alex shook his head, his voice gentle. "I think we all have our own pace. And maybe it just wasn't your time yet." She looked at him, struck by the sincerity in his eyes, and felt a surge of gratitude for his understanding. In that moment, the distance of the years between them melted away, replaced by a quiet closeness that made her heart ache in the best possible way. The rest of the morning passed in a soft blur of shared laughter and comfortable silences as they explored more of Willow Bay. They wandered through old cobblestone streets, past quaint houses with ivy creeping up the walls, and into the heart of the town's small marketplace. Stalls lined the street, filled with everything from fresh fruits to handmade jewelry, the air filled with the scent of baked bread and wildflowers. As they strolled through the market, Alex stopped at a stall selling handcrafted leather journals and picked one up, turning it over thoughtfully. "Still keeping journals?" Sophia asked, remembering his habit of writing down his thoughts and adventures when they were younger. He grinned, a hint of embarrassment in his expression. "Sometimes. I guess old habits die hard." She smiled, taking a journal off the table and leafing through the blank pages. "I think it's nice," she said softly. "To have something to look back on, to remember." He looked at her then, his gaze softening, and for a moment, she felt as though he were seeing right through her, all her worries and fears laid bare. "Then maybe you should start one too," he said, placing the journal in her hands. "For all the memories we're making." She took it, feeling a strange mix of vulnerability and warmth at the gesture, and nodded. "Maybe I will." They continued wandering, pausing here and there to admire trinkets or sample local treats. At one stall, a kind old woman selling flowers handed them a single white rose, smiling knowingly as she pressed it into Sophia's hands. "For luck," the woman said, winking before turning to help another customer. They laughed as they walked away, the rose a delicate reminder of the unspoken connection blossoming between them. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Alex surprised her with another plan. "How about one more stop before dinner?" he asked, a mischievous sparkle in his eye. She raised an eyebrow. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." He led her up a winding trail that overlooked the ocean, the path shaded by tall pines. The air grew cooler, and the sound of waves crashing against the cliffs filled the air as they ascended. Finally, they reached a small clearing with a view that took her breath away. The entire bay stretched out below them, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. They spread out a blanket on the grass, and Alex pulled out a small picnic he'd prepared, complete with wine and a selection of cheeses. They sat together, the sun casting a warm glow over everything as they shared bites of food, sipped wine, and watched as the sky slowly transformed into shades of pink and purple. "This is beautiful," Sophia murmured, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "It's not as beautiful as this," he replied, his gaze lingering on her face. She felt her cheeks flush, but she didn't look away. Instead, she reached out, placing her hand over his. Their fingers intertwined, and the world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the warmth of his touch and the sound of their breaths mingling in the quiet evening air. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, they lay back on the blanket, watching as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. Their shoulders touched, their hands still clasped, and for a long while, they just lay there in silence, letting the peacefulness of the night envelop them. "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if we'd stayed in touch?" Alex asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. She turned her head to look at him, her heart skipping a beat at the vulnerability in his expression. "Maybe," she replied, her voice equally quiet. "But maybe we were meant to find each other now, when we're ready for it." He looked at her, his gaze intense, and she felt herself drawn in, a sense of certainty settling in her chest. In that moment, she knew that this, whatever it was worth holding on to. Slowly, Alex leaned in, his hand lifting to gently brush a strand of hair from her face. She closed her eyes as his lips met hers, soft and warm, and everything else faded away. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as though they were bearing witness to something rare and precious. And as they lay together under the starlit sky, their hearts beating in quiet harmony, they both knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful. The evening after their day exploring Willow Bay, Alex and Sophia returned to the inn, feeling a quiet sense of contentment. There was a calm in the air, one that seemed to envelop them both, and it was as if all the worries of the world had faded, leaving only the magic of this moment. After settling in and freshening up, they met in the lobby, exchanging a soft smile as they headed toward a quiet dinner reservation Alex had made. The inn's cozy restaurant was a warmly lit, rustic haven that smelled of fresh herbs and wood smoke. The ambience was inviting, a quiet hum of soft conversation mingling with the faint clink of silverware. It felt secluded, intimate, the perfect setting for two people reconnecting after so many years apart. As they were seated, Alex leaned in with a playful smirk. "So, any regrets about coming along on this spontaneous adventure?" Sophia shook her head, smiling. "None whatsoever. In fact, I might even say I'm grateful." "Grateful, huh?" he echoed, arching an eyebrow. "Not what I expected, but I'll take it." They ordered their food, and as they waited, their conversation continued with a mix of light-hearted laughter and quiet moments where their eyes met, saying everything they hadn't put into words. Between sips of wine and bites of food, they shared stories of places they wanted to see, dreams they still held close, and the little things they hadn't shared with anyone else. Alex talked about his love of the mountains, the way he felt grounded whenever he was out in nature. Sophia opened up about her art, the way she could lose hours in front of a canvas, letting color and emotion spill out onto it. When dessert arrived, a decadent chocolate tart they decided to share, Sophia took a small bite, closing her eyes as she savored the rich, sweet taste. "Wow, this is amazing," she said, her eyes lighting up as she looked at him. He grinned, taking a forkful himself. "Right? Definitely worth it." They finished their dessert, each lingering over the last bites, and then Alex glanced at her, a playful spark in his eye. "There's a place I want to show you after this." Sophia tilted her head, intrigued. "Oh." Should I be nervous? Only if you're afraid of heights, he teased, standing up and offering her his hand. A short drive later, they arrived at a cliffside point, high above the bay. The night was clear, the sky a canvas of stars that stretched endlessly above them. A gentle breeze ruffled Sophia's hair as she looked out over the view, breathless at the sight. Alex joined her at the edge, their shoulders brushing as they both took in the quiet beauty of the landscape. "This place, it always reminded me of how small we are," he said softly, his gaze distant as he looked up at the stars. "But in a good way. Like, whatever happens, there's something bigger out there." Sophia nodded, feeling the same sense of wonder. "It's humbling," she murmured. "And peaceful." They stood there in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the faint rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. Then, feeling a surge of courage, Sophia turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "Alex, have you ever wondered what would have happened if we hadn't lost touch?" He looked at her, his expression softening as he reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I think about it sometimes," he admitted. "But I also believe that things happen when they're meant to. Maybe we needed this time apart to grow, to figure out who we are." She looked down, nodding slowly. "Maybe you're right." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words, but when she met his gaze again, the tension eased, replaced by a sense of shared understanding. She felt her heart racing, and in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the quiet, unspoken promise that lay between them. Without a word, he leaned in, his hand gently cupping her cheek, and their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss that felt like coming home. It was tender, sweet, and filled with a depth of emotion that took her breath away. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the endless expanse of stars, she knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful. As their kiss deepened, the world around them faded away, and all that remained was the warmth of each other's presence. Alex pulled back slightly, their foreheads resting against one another, their breaths mingling in the cool night air. The stars twinkled above them, seemingly applauding the rekindling of this long-lost connection. "I've missed this," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible above the night's gentle sounds. "I've missed you." Sophia smiled softly, her heart swelling at his words. "I've missed you too. More than I realized until this moment." The truth of her words hung in the air between them, heavy yet uplifting. In the time they had spent apart, life had moved on, and yet, the connection they once shared was undeniable. Here, in this moment, beneath a blanket of stars, everything felt right again. They stood together, a sense of calm enveloping them as they both took in the beauty of the night. After lingering at the edge of the cliff for a while longer, they decided to head back down to the inn. As they walked hand in hand, Sophia couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Perhaps they could rediscover the dreams they once shared and forge new ones together. Upon arriving at the inn, the warm light from the lobby welcomed them back, a stark contrast to the cool night air. They found a cozy nook by the fireplace, the flames dancing and crackling as they settled onto the plush couch. With glasses of wine in hand, they toasted to their impromptu getaway and the unexpected turn of events that had brought them here. "Here's to new beginnings," Alex said, his eyes sparkling as he raised his glass. "To new beginnings," Sophia echoed, feeling the warmth of the wine spread through her, enhancing the warmth in her heart. As they sipped their drinks, they fell into conversation again, discussing everything from their dreams to their favorite memories together. Each story they shared brought them closer, layers of time peeling away to reveal the core of who they were and the bond they had shared. "I remember the summer we spent at the lake," Sophia said, her eyes lighting up with nostalgia. "We would wake up at dawn to go fishing, and you always caught the biggest fish." Alex chuckled, shaking his head. "I remember you being the one who snagged that massive trout. I was so jealous." "It was pure luck, I swear," she laughed. "But those mornings were the best. Just us, the water, and the sunrise." It felt so free. Their laughter echoed in the cozy space, filling it with warmth and light. As the evening wore on, their conversation grew more intimate, their voices dropping to soft murmurs as they shared secrets and dreams that had been tucked away for far too long. "Do you ever think about what it would be like if we had stayed together?" Alex asked suddenly, his tone serious. Sophia felt her heart race at the question. "All the time," she admitted. "But it's complicated, isn't it? Life took us in different directions." He nodded thoughtfully, taking a moment before continuing. "I think about how much has changed for both of us. But I can't help but feel that the connection we had was something special. Like, maybe we were meant to find our way back to each other." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, all she could do was gaze at him, taking in the earnestness of his expression. The flickering firelight cast a soft glow on his features, making him look both warm and undeniably handsome. "I believe that," she replied finally, her voice a whisper. "I really do. Maybe we needed this time apart to grow and realize what we truly want." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the weight of their shared past and the uncertainty of the future seemed to vanish. It was just the two of them, two souls intertwined, ready to embrace whatever came next. After a while, they stood and moved to the window, where the night sky spread out before them like a vast ocean of stars. Alex wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close as they gazed out together. "Look at that one," he pointed out, his voice filled with wonder. "It's so bright, it almost looks like it's winking at us." Sophia laughed softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. "It feels like they're all watching us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like they're cheering us on." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's warmth, an overwhelming sense of peace washed over them. It was a feeling they had both longed for, a sense of belonging that felt both familiar and new. "You know," Alex said softly, breaking the silence, "I've always believed that the universe has a funny way of bringing people back together." "Do you think that's what's happening now?" she asked, lifting her head to meet his gaze. "I hope so," he replied, his voice earnest. "I hope this is just the beginning of something beautiful." She smiled, her heart fluttering at his words. "I think it could be. If we let it." With that, Alex leaned down, capturing her lips in a tender kiss that sent a rush of warmth through her. It was soft at first, exploratory, as if they were both testing the waters of this new chapter in their relationship. But soon, it deepened, filled with the passion and longing they had both felt but hadn't acted upon until now. When they finally pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, Sophia felt a sense of exhilaration wash over her. This was more than a simple kiss, it was a promise of hope, of love, and of the potential for what lay ahead. "Shall we take this moment and cherish it?" Alex asked, his voice low and filled with warmth. "No rushing, just savoring every second." Sophia nodded, her heart full. "Yes, let's. I want to remember this." They returned to the couch, their fingers entwined as they settled in for the night. The fire crackled softly, and they spoke in hushed tones, whispering sweet nothings and sharing dreams, each moment filled with the warmth of their connection. As the hours slipped by, the world outside faded into silence, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in each other's arms, sharing secrets, laughter, and the spark of rekindled romance. They talked about their hopes for the future, dreams they had yet to chase, and the adventures that awaited them. In the stillness of the night, Sophia felt a sense of belonging she hadn't known in years. With Alex by her side, everything felt possible. Together, they could create a future filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. As sleep began to take them, they held each other close, the warmth of their bodies a soothing balm against the cool night air. In that cocoon of safety and warmth, Sophia drifted off, feeling content and cherished. As dawn broke, the first light of the morning filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. Sophia stirred, stretching lazily as she blinked against the sunlight. The warmth beside her brought a smile to her lips. Alex was still asleep, his features relaxed and peaceful. For a moment, she simply watched him, taking in the way the morning light danced across his face, highlighting the contours of his jaw and the gentle curve of his lips. Memories of the night before flooded back, laughter, whispered secrets, and the undeniable spark of their rekindled romance. Her heart swelled with hope, and she felt a rush of affection for the man lying beside her. Leaning closer, she placed a gentle kiss on his forehead, relishing the moment before the reality of the day pulled them back into the world. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said softly as he stirred, a sleepy smile spreading across his face. "Good morning," he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. He opened one eye, looking at her with a mixture of warmth and surprise. "Wow, you're up early." "I wanted to let you sleep a little longer," she replied, snuggling closer to him. "But I couldn't resist the urge to wake you with a kiss." His smile widened, and he pulled her in for a deeper embrace, the sheets tangling around them as he captured her lips in a soft kiss. "Best way to wake up ever," he murmured against her mouth. They lingered like that for a few moments, lost in each other's warmth, the world outside forgotten. But soon, reality crept in, and the day beckoned them to rise and greet it. After a leisurely breakfast of pastries and coffee in the inn's cozy dining room, they decided to explore the surrounding area. The charm of the little town called to them, with its quaint shops and beautiful landscapes. They wandered hand in hand, the sun shining down, casting a golden hue over everything it touched. "Let's check out that little bookstore," Sophia suggested, pointing to a charming shop with a sign that creaked gently in the breeze. The smell of aged paper wafted through the open door, drawing them in like moths to a flame. Inside, they were enveloped in a world of stories, the shelves lined with books of every kind. Sophia ran her fingers along the spines, her heart racing at the thought of getting lost in the pages of a new adventure. "Let's pick out a book to read together," Alex said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "We can take it back to the inn and have our own little reading session." Sophia loved the idea. She pulled a few books off the shelf, flipping through them until one caught her eye, a collection of romantic poetry. "What do you think of this one?" she asked, holding it up for him to see. "I love it," he replied, taking it from her hands and flipping through the pages. "Let's get it." With their newfound treasure in hand, they left the bookstore and strolled toward the nearby park. The sun bathed the grass in a warm glow, and the laughter of children playing nearby filled the air with a sense of joy. Finding a quiet spot under a large oak tree, they settled onto a picnic blanket they had brought along. "I'm glad we did this," Sophia said, spreading the blanket and settling in beside him. "This feels perfect." "It really does," Alex replied, taking a deep breath of the fresh air. "Just us, a beautiful day, and a book full of words to share." They spent the next hour reading aloud from the poetry book, taking turns sharing verses that resonated with them. Each line seemed to weave a spell around them, deepening their connection and reminding them of the beauty of love. "Listen to this one," Sophia said, her voice soft as she read a stanza that spoke of longing and desire. "It perfectly captures how I've felt about you all these years." As she read, she looked up to find Alex gazing at her, his expression filled with admiration. The intensity of his gaze made her heart race, and when she finished the poem, he leaned in, brushing his lips against hers once more. Their kisses were tender, igniting the passion they had discovered the night before. Time seemed to stand still as they lost themselves in each other, their surroundings fading away. Eventually, they pulled away, breathless and laughing, their hearts racing. "Wow," Alex said, looking at her with a mixture of awe and delight. "I think we need to make reading poetry a regular thing." Sophia laughed, her cheeks flushed with warmth. "I'm all for that. It seems to inspire some interesting reactions." "Interesting?" "More like incredible," he replied, a teasing glint in his eyes. I can't remember the last time I felt this alive. With their hearts intertwined and their spirits soaring, they spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the park, sharing playful banter, and taking silly pictures together. The carefree nature of the day felt magical, and with each passing moment, they fell deeper into their connection. As the sun began to dip low in the sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and pink, they decided to head back to the inn. The evening promised more intimacy, more laughter, and a chance to dive deeper into the feelings they had both guarded for so long. Once back in their cozy room, they decided to continue their exploration of poetry. They nestled together on the couch, the fire crackling softly beside them, and resumed their reading. "This one's about the beauty of vulnerability," Alex said, his voice warm as he began to read aloud. The words washed over them, evoking a sense of safety and trust. As he read, Sophia felt the barriers they had built around their hearts begin to dissolve. Each word was a gentle caress, inviting them to be open and honest with one another. She knew that sharing their thoughts and feelings was essential if they wanted to build something lasting. When Alex finished, he set the book aside and turned to her, his expression earnest. "Sophia, can I be honest with you?" "Of course," she replied, her heart racing as she sensed the weight of his words. "I've been holding back for so long. I didn't want to scare you away or make things complicated. But I care about you deeply. I've never stopped loving you." Her heart soared at his confession, and she felt a rush of emotions flood her. "I've felt the same way," she admitted, her voice trembling with sincerity. "I thought I was the only one who felt this connection still." "I don't want to lose this again," he said, his gaze intense. "I want to be here with you, to explore this together. To see where it can lead." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the truth of his words. "Me too, Alex. I want to see where this can go. Together." With that, he reached out, cupping her face in his hands as he leaned in for another kiss. This one was deeper, filled with the promise of everything that lay ahead, the uncertainty, the excitement, and the profound love that had always existed between them. As they pulled away, both breathless and flushed, they knew they were at the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. No longer bound by the past, they were ready to embrace whatever the future held. The evening unfolded with laughter and whispered secrets, the world outside fading into nothingness as they lost themselves in one another. They were two souls entwined, sharing their dreams and hopes beneath the watchful gaze of the stars. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver glow across the inn's cozy room. The fire crackled softly, filling the air with warmth and a sense of intimacy that enveloped Sophia and Alex as they settled into each other's arms. The poetry book lay forgotten on the coffee table, their earlier reading now replaced by the rhythm of their hearts, pulsing with the promise of new beginnings. As they cuddled on the couch, Alex traced soft patterns on her arm with his fingertips, igniting goosebumps along her skin. "You know," he began, his voice low and thoughtful, "I never imagined we'd find our way back to each other like this." Sophia looked up at him, her heart swelling. "Neither did I. But I'm so glad we did. It feels like fate." His gaze intensified, and he nodded slowly, a smile creeping onto his lips. "Exactly. It's as if all the years apart were leading us to this moment." They shared a lingering kiss, both feeling the weight of unspoken emotions. It was a kiss filled with the promise of what was yet to come, a blending of past regrets and future hopes. The world outside faded into a soft hush, and all that mattered was the connection they were rekindling. After a moment, Sophia pulled away slightly, searching his eyes. "What do you think we should do now? Where do we go from here?" Alex hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "I think we should take our time. We have so much to explore, and I want to make sure we're both ready for whatever comes next." "Agreed," she replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. I don't want to rush things. I want to enjoy every moment with you. Then let's make the most of this weekend, he suggested, a playful glint in his eyes. Tomorrow, we'll explore more of the town, and maybe we can find some adventure along the way. Sophia grinned, her excitement bubbling to the surface. Adventure sounds perfect. What do you have in mind? I heard there's a hiking trail nearby that leads to a stunning viewpoint, he replied, enthusiasm coloring his tone. We can pack a picnic and make a day of it. Count me in, she exclaimed, clapping her hands together in delight. The idea of being out in nature with Alex, surrounded by beauty and adventure, made her heart race with anticipation. With plans set for the next day, they decided to settle down for the night. The fire flickered, and they moved to the bed, still wrapped in each other's warmth. They talked and laughed, sharing stories from their childhood, their dreams, and everything in between. As the hours passed, their words flowed effortlessly, weaving a tapestry of connection that felt stronger than ever. Eventually, the laughter subsided, and a comfortable silence settled between them. Sophia nestled her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a lullaby that soothed her soul. Alex, she said softly, breaking the tranquil silence, do you ever think about the future? What it might hold for us? He took a deep breath, his fingers playing with her hair. All the time. I want us to build something real, something lasting. I know it's not going to be easy, but I believe we can do it if we stay honest and open with each other. I agree, she said, her heart racing at the thought. But I also know that we have to face our pasts first. There are things we need to resolve. He nodded, a serious look crossing his face.
Yeah.
I know. I've carried a lot of regrets and mistakes from our past, and I want to make sure we address them. I don't want anything to come between us again. Sophia's heart sank a little at the thought of their past, but she also felt a sense of determination. We can face it together. It's the only way we'll be able to move forward. Exactly, he replied, a grateful smile lighting up his face. I'm glad we're on the same page about this. It means everything to me. As the night deepened, they fell into a comfortable sleep, wrapped in each other's arms. The world outside faded away, leaving only the warmth of their connection and the promise of a new day. Morning arrived with the sun peeking through the curtains, casting a golden light across the room. Sophia stirred, feeling the warmth of Alex beside her. She smiled, knowing they had a day of adventure ahead. After a quick breakfast, they packed a picnic basket with sandwiches, fruit, and snacks, excitement bubbling within them as they prepared for their hike. Ready to conquer the world? Alex asked, grinning as they stepped out of the inn, hand in hand. Absolutely. Let's go, she replied, her heart racing at the thought of what awaited them. The trail was beautiful, winding through towering trees and vibrant wildflowers. As they hiked, they laughed and shared stories, their voices mingling with the sound of rustling leaves and chirping birds. Every step brought them closer, not just to the viewpoint but to each other. After a while, they reached a clearing that opened up to a breathtaking view of the valley below. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the sun bathed everything in a warm glow. Sophia gasped, her breath taken away by the beauty of it all. It's stunning, she breathed, stepping closer to the edge and taking in the view. Alex joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Just like you, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. She turned to face him, her heart racing at the intensity of his gaze. You always know what to say to make me blush, she replied, laughter dancing in her eyes. Only because it's true, he said, leaning in closer. The moment hung between them, charged with electricity. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest as he leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that stole her breath away. It was soft and sweet, filled with the promise of everything they were building together. As they pulled away, their foreheads rested against one another, the world around them fading into a beautiful blur. "I could stay here forever," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Me too," he replied, his eyes sparkling. "Let's make this moment last." They unpacked their picnic, sharing the meal under the shade of a nearby tree. Laughter filled the air as they fed each other bites of food, playfully stealing from each other's plates. Every moment was a testament to their connection, and as they finished eating, they lay back on the blanket, staring up at the clouds drifting lazily across the sky. "I missed this," Alex said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Just being with you like this, without any distractions." "Me too," Sophia replied, feeling a sense of contentment wash over her. "It's like we're the only two people in the world right now." Their conversation drifted to their hopes and dreams, plans for the future, and all the little things that brought them joy. With each word spoken, they built a stronger foundation for their relationship, one that would withstand the tests of time. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they packed up their things, ready to head back to the inn. The hike back was filled with a comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts, but the atmosphere was charged with an unspoken understanding. When they arrived back at the inn, the day had turned into a beautiful evening. They decided to freshen up and head out for dinner at a local restaurant known for its charm and delicious food. Sophia slipped into a simple yet elegant dress, feeling a flutter of nerves mixed with excitement. As she looked in the mirror, she couldn't help but feel a sense of renewal. This weekend had changed everything for her. When Alex saw her, his breath caught in his throat. "Wow, you look absolutely stunning," he said, his eyes widening with admiration. "Thank you," she replied, her cheeks flushing at his compliment. "You don't look so bad yourself." With laughter and light hearts, they made their way to the restaurant, hand in hand, ready to savor every moment of the evening. The restaurant was cozy, with soft lighting and a warm ambience that wrapped around them like a blanket. Over dinner, they shared stories and laughter, their connection growing deeper with every passing moment. The atmosphere was charged with romance, and Sophia couldn't help but feel a rush of happiness at how far they had come. As they finished their meal, Alex reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Sophia, I'm so grateful for this weekend. You've brought so much joy back into my life." "Me too, Alex," she replied, her heart swelling with affection. "I feel like I'm discovering a new side of you, and it's incredible." He smiled, a soft warmth in his eyes. "I want to keep discovering you too. I want to make this last." After dinner, they decided to take a walk along the nearby river, the moonlight shimmering on the water's surface. The gentle sound of the flowing water and the soft rustle of leaves created a serene backdrop as they strolled side by side. "Look at that!" Sophia exclaimed, pointing to a small bridge adorned with fairy lights. "It's beautiful." "Let's go check it out," Alex said, leading her toward the bridge. As they stepped onto the bridge, the world around them felt enchanted, as if they were in a fairy tale. They leaned against the railing, gazing at the water flowing beneath them, lost in the moment. "I wish this night could last forever," Sophia said softly, her heart full of hope. "Maybe it can," Alex replied, turning to face her. "We just have to hold on to it and not let go." Sophia's breath hitched as he leaned closer, the space between them narrowing. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, the air charged with electricity. And then, as if the universe conspired to bring them closer, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her again, a kiss that sealed their unbreakable bond. In that moment, under the stars and the soft glow of fairy lights, Sophia knew they had a future filled with endless possibilities. As the kiss lingered, the world around them faded into a soft blur, time itself seeming to pause. The gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze, the shimmering reflections on the water, and the distant call of night creatures all faded away, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and love. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and enchanted, Sophia looked into Alex's eyes, feeling as if she were gazing into the depths of the universe itself. "I never knew it was possible to feel so alive," she whispered, a soft smile dancing on her lips. Alex chuckled softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "It's because we're finally being true to ourselves, true to each other. I can't believe how far we've come in such a short time. It feels like we were meant to find our way back to each other all along." A sense of tranquility washed over Sophia. "You're right. It's as if the universe conspired to bring us together again, to give us a second chance." They stood on the bridge for a moment longer, simply enjoying the beauty of the night. The stars twinkled overhead like 1,000 diamonds scattered across velvet, each one a reminder of the countless memories they would create together. Eventually, they made their way back from the bridge, hand in hand, hearts full of dreams yet to be realized. The walk back to the inn was filled with soft laughter, shared stories, and the warmth of shared glances. Each step felt like a promise of love, of understanding, and of adventures yet to come. Once they returned to their cozy room, the world outside dimmed, and the fire crackled softly in the hearth. Alex wrapped his arms around Sophia, pulling her close as they settled onto the couch once more. The ambience was intimate, filled with the scent of the burning wood and the lingering warmth of their connection. "Do you remember the first time we sat like this?" he asked, his voice gentle as he looked down at her. Sophia smiled, nodding. "It feels like a lifetime ago. We were so different then, but I think that experience shaped who we are now." "True," he replied thoughtfully. "But I wouldn't change a thing. Every moment led us to this, to the incredible bond we have now." She felt her heart swell with emotion, and she reached up to cup his face, their foreheads touching in a moment of shared vulnerability. "I don't want to let fear hold us back anymore. I want us to embrace whatever comes next, together." "Me too," Alex promised, a serious look in his eyes. "Let's take this leap of faith." "I'm all in, Sophia. You have my heart." With those words, a wave of love washed over her, as if everything they had experienced, the distance, the heartache, the reunion, had all led to this very moment. "And you have mine," she whispered, sealing their promises with another kiss, this one filled with deeper meaning and unwavering resolve. As the fire danced before them, the couple spoke of their dreams for the future, traveling to distant places, building a life together, and nurturing the love that had blossomed from the ashes of their past. Each word painted a vivid picture of hope, creating a tapestry of possibilities that seemed endless. The weekend came to a close, but the journey ahead felt bright and promising. They knew challenges would come, but they were ready to face them, hand in hand, hearts aligned. In the early morning light, as the sun rose, casting golden rays through the windows, they made a pact to cherish every moment, to embrace every adventure, and to nurture their love like a delicate flower, allowing it to grow and flourish in the light. As they packed their belongings, ready to leave the inn and return to the reality of life, Sophia couldn't help but glance back at the cozy retreat. It had been more than just a weekend getaway, it had been a turning point, a beautiful chapter in their story of love. "Let's promise to come back here," Alex suggested, catching her gaze. "Not just to remember our past, but to celebrate our future." "Absolutely," she replied, her heart full of warmth. "This place will always hold a special place in our hearts." With hands intertwined, they stepped out into the world, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Their hearts were light, filled with the echoes of laughter, the warmth of love, and the promise of tomorrow. And as they walked forward into the sunlit day, they knew one thing for certain: they had finally found their way home, in each other's arms. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the world, we come to the end of our enchanting journey with Starlit Whispers. We hope you felt the magic of love rekindle between Sophia and Alex, as they embraced their past and ventured into a beautiful future together. Thank you for joining us here at Soft Echoes. If you enjoyed this romantic tale, Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. Each day, we'll bring you a new romantic adventure, filled with passion, connection, and the timeless essence of love. Let us take you on a journey through enchanting landscapes of desire and intimacy, where every story will sweep you off your feet and remind you of the magic that love can bring into our lives. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep loving, and keep listening to the whispers of your heart. Join us tomorrow for another romantic tale that promises to tug at your heartstrings. Sweet dreams, and see you soon.